So Professor Richard Wolff went on the show Rising, and he spoke about the state of the U.S. economy. Now, I believe Richard Wolff calls himself a Marxian economist. And he made an interesting and important point about what's going on. Take a look.
The Federal Reserve has now made a decision about a week ago to start buying corporate bonds in the secondary market. What that effectively means is that the government is backstopping the entire credit apparatus of the United States. It already stands behind most homes through the mortgage systems that we've developed since the 30s, and now it is standing behind all the corporate loans because, in effect, it becomes the banker of last resort. Any idea that the economy is now, quote unquote, a free private enterprise economy is downright silly, as well as ideologically backward. We now have an economic system utterly dependent on the creation of money by our central bank. I could go on, but these are signs of disintegration of one kind of economic system and the transition towards another one. It's not clear exactly where this will end. But as I said to you, this is a level of breakdown that is really impossible for me to find in the prior history of our capitalism, at least since the Civil War.
That is terrifying. That is terrifying. What he's saying is, this isn't even analogous to the Great Depression. We've never seen anything this extreme. We've never seen anything that's gone this far. Again, just so everybody understands, real unemployment, the official unemployment rate might be about 15% or so. The actual unemployment rate is over 20%. You know what the official unemployment rate was? And I don't know how they calculated it. I think they calculated it differently back then, but the official unemployment rate at the height of the Great Depression was about 24%. So we're in Great Depression territory. We're in Great Depression territory. I told you guys, the former record for unemployment claims filed in a week was about 650,000 or just under 700,000 unemployment claims. We've broken that every week since the start of the pandemic. In fact, one week it was 1 million unemployment claims, and they were celebrating it on TV, and the politicians were celebrating it. Oh, thank God, we thought it was going to be another 4 million. It was only 1 million. So they were celebrating the number of unemployment claims being higher than the height of the Great Recession, which was no cakewalk. Oh, we're in trouble. Oh, we're in trouble. So he's saying this is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. So let's walk through some of his points here. He says, well, the Federal Reserve is effectively backstopping corporate debt and the entire credit apparatus of the United States. And he goes on to say it's, quote, downright silly to say we're a laissez-faire, free market capitalist system at this point. Why? Because of that. Because we are the Federal Reserve, central bank, is backstopping corporate debt in the entire credit apparatus of the United States. So without that there. Now, what's the laissez-faire approach? A true libertarian anarcho-capitalist would say, oh, first of all, they don't even want a central bank. So the central bank wouldn't even exist under their ideal scenario. But at the very least, they'd say, oh, no, like, they shouldn't be doing that. Let everything fail. And then everybody would have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But you'd effectively have a total collapse of the economy and society in a situation like that. Complete and utter collapse. So it is good in a sense that the Federal Reserve is backstopping effectively the economy and the credit apparatus of the United States. But, and this goes to a point that Jon Stewart actually just made on Joe Rogan's show when talking about the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession, we had an opportunity to, instead of backstopping or bailing out the systems that screwed us, you could have just bailed out the people. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that in 2008 when they rushed in and bailed out Wall Street, bailed out the financial institutions. They could have just made those mortgages, they could have just paid off those mortgages that were bad. The government could have taxpayer bailed out those mortgages so people didn't get foreclosed on. Could have bailed out the people. They didn't do it. They bailed out the corporations instead. And then those people got foreclosed on, and the corporations got away without a scratch. And it's effectively the same thing now. Like, okay, we're going to start buying corporate debt. We're going to backstop the entire credit apparatus of the United States, but people still can't pay the bills. People can't pay their mortgage. People can't pay their rent. And by the way, it's not even just, it's also the landlords. The landlords can't pay it either because the people aren't paying the landlords, so the landlords owe the banks, but it's the banks who are getting saved again, but they're still going to demand the money. So there's no way we get out of this unscathed. There's no way. Because yet again, they're bailing out the system, they're not bailing out the people. Well, what happens when there are no more tricks and the people can't afford anything? Then what? Then the entire system goes belly up. The entire system grounds to a halt. See, this is why, and he goes on to talk a little bit about this, but this is why you need a fundamental restructuring of society. You need, like in the Great Depression, we couldn't get out of it until we had a social democrat, FDR, in power who fundamentally restructured the nature of the economy. Now, there are, far leftists, communists, who will say, no, he saved capitalism, so they don't like FDR because they think, he put into place the measures that saved capitalism. But there's no question about whether or not what he did ended up helping your average person. I mean, apart from, of course, the atrocious race policies, doing the New Deal, setting up a social safety net, that absolutely had the effect of redistributing wealth back to the people. And we weren't able to get back to some semblance of normalcy until you had what was functionally a bailout of the people. And then, of course, we had World War II, which led to tremendous stimulus and spending, again, on the people by and large, because everybody needed to get the jobs in the factories to build the goods for the war. And so it took the New Deal and World War II, giant stimulus projects that went to the people that ended up leading to the recovery. Now, just like in 2008, except now it's worse because it's a bigger crisis, all the bailout money is going towards the corporations, corporate debt, and the people are getting hosed. And so his point is, effectively, it's the same point that Bernie Sanders makes when Bernie says, we're not a free market, laissez-faire capitalist country. We are a socialist country, but what we do is socialism for the rich. We do socialism for the corporations. So we're very different in the sense that it's not socialism for the people, which would actually be good. This is socialism for the corporations. This is socialism for the wealthy. So this is, it's a kleptocracy or an oligarchy. That's how it's functioning. That's how the system is functioning. But we haven't seen anything like this because the extent of this problem and the wide-reaching response from the Federal Reserve and Congress it's as big in scale as our response to the Great Depression, but the Great Depression response had a tremendous element of bailing out the people, whereas we have a response now that's just as big in scale as the response to the Great Depression, but it's all going to the corporations and the rich. So it's like the perfect storm of terribleness. And who knows what the hell is coming next. But again, this is unprecedented. We're in uncharted territory here. When a guy as smart as Richard Wolff, who's been right about so much, is warning us about what we're doing and what's going on and how, we're in a devastating situation, it's time to panic. It's time to panic. Because now instead of going left when the crisis hits, there's just a doubling down and tripling down on neoliberal corporatism and on corporate socialism. So I fear for what's happening right now, but also for the future generation. Oh, forget it.